In Laboratory Reddit, today's story is:
I won the lottery and my wife abandoned me the next day. Her plan for 75% left her with nothing. Allow me to share something extraordinary that happened to me 3 months ago. For the first time in my life, I decided to buy a lottery ticket, something I never normally do. To my amazement, it turned out to be the winning ticket. However, what initially appeared to be an incredible stroke of luck soon became the catalyst for a series of devastating events, starting with my wife filing for divorce just a few days later. Our relationship was already going through a turbulent period. The last few months had been marked by frequent arguments, during which she showed a harshness that I found increasingly difficult to bear. The core of our problems centered on a complex financial situation involving her retired parents. Her parents, former secondary school teachers, found themselves in a precarious financial position due to some unfortunate investment decisions made shortly before their retirement. While they were not completely devoid of savings, their resources were insufficient to maintain a comfortable life. As a result, over the past few years, my wife and I had been allocating a significant portion of our combined monthly income to help them financially. During our 5-year relationship, 3 of them as a married couple, I had been supporting my parents without question. They are genuinely kind people, and at first, contributing to their well-being seemed like the right thing to do. However, circumstances changed dramatically at the beginning of this year when our first child was born. The arrival of our baby made me reconsider our financial priorities, recognizing the need to reduce the support we were sending to our parents. My reasoning was simple: raising a child entails considerable expenses, and we also needed to start building our own financial future. Maintaining our current lifestyle, covering the costs of raising a child and continuing to send the same amount of money to her parents was putting significant pressure on our finances. When I tried to address this issue a couple of months ago, suggesting a moderate reduction in financial support, my wife reacted with an unexpected indignation. The ensuing discussion was intense, and although we managed to reconcile temporarily, every subsequent attempt to raise the issue provoked the same angry response from her. This cycle had repeated itself several times, and although we always found a way to make peace for the sake of our daughter, this last time things took an irreversible turn. We were in the middle of another period of tension when I received the news that I had won the lottery. Even though we hadn't spoken to each other for days, my excitement led me to immediately share the news with her, hoping that this unexpected fortune could help us overcome our differences. Her reaction was disconcerting, just a disinterested nod before returning to her activities, as if the news were of no importance. The next day marked the beginning of the end. She informed me that she would visit her parents with our daughter to take a breather. What she didn't mention was that this visit would turn into a permanent departure. 3 days later, I discovered that she had blocked me from all forms of communication. Shortly afterwards, I received the divorce papers. My attempts to visit her at her parents' home were futile. They deliberately ignored my presence, leaving me to ring the doorbell and knock without response, a humiliating experience that was repeated several times before I finally gave up. The divorce petition revealed her true intentions. She was demanding 75% of my lottery winnings as maintenance. It was as if all the years of supporting her family had evaporated from her memory. The magnitude of the sum requested made her motivations clear, and it was then that I decided that if she had chosen this path, I too would take a firm stance. After some thought, I hired the most prestigious and expensive divorce lawyer I could find, trusting in his ability to protect my interests. We initially tried to resolve the matter through court mediation, but she and her lawyer remained inflexible, arguing that she deserved that amount simply for being the mother of my daughter and earning less than me. When the case went to court, my lawyer and I were prepared. In a few hearings, we managed to discredit her unfounded accusations about my alleged emotional unavailability and presumed mental torment. Once the truth was exposed, the situation took a dramatic turn in my favor. Now she could lose everything she has claimed, the house, both cars, and she will even have to return certain wedding jewelry that are family heirlooms. Furthermore, given that the difference in our incomes is not substantial, the alimony will be significantly less than what she is seeking. Her final argument focuses on the need to help her parents, requesting a higher alimony payment for this reason. However, my lawyer and I have a solid position. For 3 years, we have sent them considerable amounts every month, so it is unlikely that they have not been able to save any of that money. We assume that their savings have increased enough to support themselves financially. Although there are still a few weeks to go before the final resolution, my parents have asked me to reconsider my position. They want me to be more generous with the alimony out of compassion for my in-laws. I have explained to them that, despite everything I did for them, they did not support me when I tried to reconcile with my wife. Therefore, I feel no moral obligation at this time. I believe she deserves the consequences of her actions, although my parents do not share this opinion. To clarify some important points, the house was a wedding gift from my parents and grandparents, legally registered in my name. I bought my car myself, and I also bought her car as a birthday present last year, although the title is still in my name as we never bothered to transfer it. This is why we are disputing ownership of both vehicles, as they were purchased with my hard-earned money. As for the house, as it was a gift from my family, I have no intention of giving it to her. Regarding the jewelry, my position is clear. They are family heirlooms and she is no longer part of the family. Update 1. I want to express my gratitude for all the support and comments received. It's been a couple of days since my original post, and I've had a meaningful conversation with my parents. I expressed my dissatisfaction with their overly sympathetic attitude, which I perceive as insensitive to my situation. I explained that it bothers me that they try to make me feel guilty for defending myself, especially considering that I gave my wife multiple opportunities before she decided to act out of greed, even going so far as to try to defame me in court just to get 75% of my lottery winnings. I asked them to try to see the situation from my perspective to understand why I feel so hurt and why I'm taking these measures. They acknowledged that they did empathize with me, which was why they had not questioned my decisions about the house, the cars or the jewelry, limiting their concerns solely to alimony. They tried to argue that since I have a daughter with her, I could show some leniency. However, I reminded them that she is already receiving child support specifically earmarked for our daughter, which is a completely separate issue. Seeing that they were still somewhat reluctant, I decided to open my heart completely. I described to them the deep pain I had been experiencing over the last few months, the constant arguments, and how, despite everything, I had always tried to save our marriage. I confessed to them that I never imagined that she would abandon me, given how much I loved her. But for her, it was enough that I had won the lottery for her to make her decision. I told them how she left the day after the news and cut off all communication with me. Even now, our only interactions are limited to the times she hands our daughter over to me at weekends, and I suspect that even this she does only to maintain a favorable image in court. He has not had the dignity to look me in the eye and explain his actions, which I find particularly painful after so many years together, especially considering everything I did for his parents. And they, in turn, turned their backs on me when I most needed their support, without trying to mediate or advise him to reconsider his actions. During this conversation, I broke down emotionally, letting out feelings that I had been repressing for weeks. Seeing my pain so exposed caused my parents to react immediately, comforting me and acknowledging that they had not fully considered the emotional impact of the situation on me. They admitted that they had been too lenient in their perspective and gave me the space to process my emotions. This moment of vulnerability was cathartic, as I had been holding these feelings in for a long time. Although my friends knew about the situation, I had avoided talking about it too much so as not to let it dominate my life while it was being resolved. I kept myself busy trying not to think about it, as every reflection brought pain. I couldn't share these feelings with my daughter, and until now, I had avoided delving into them even with my parents. The reality is that, as much as I want to hate her now, I find it impossible because the love I felt for her was real and not so long ago. Although it seems like an eternity, I know it is recent, and I am finding it extremely difficult to adapt my life to these dramatic changes. Every time I think about the divorce and how unpleasant everything has become, I wish I could turn off my mind and forget everything. Unfortunately, this is my reality and I cannot escape it. I can only face it, however difficult that may be. My parents' disapproval was particularly painful because it was the last thing I needed at the moment. However, I am glad I had this conversation with them, as I really needed their support. If I had chosen to distance myself because of this disagreement, I would probably have regretted it. Fortunately, we were able to clear the air, and they apologized for causing me additional stress, assuring me of their unconditional support. This support has been invaluable to me during these difficult times. At the moment, I find myself in a state of constant uncertainty about the final outcome in court. Although the circumstances seem to favor me, experience has taught me that nothing is guaranteed until the judge issues his final decision. This uncertainty is generating a considerable level of stress in my life. Although I have full confidence in my lawyer's abilities, waiting for the verdict is proving emotionally exhausting, especially because I can't help thinking that all this is happening only because my wife decided to abandon me after my lottery win, with the clear intention of keeping most of the prize for herself. Update 2. Several weeks have passed since my last update, and yesterday we had another court hearing. Although the session was generally positive, my wife and her legal representative managed to extend the process for another week. However, I can sense that we are nearing the final conclusion. I firmly believe that they will not be able to prolong this procedure any further. That same night, When she came to drop off our daughter, something unexpected happened. Normally, she leaves immediately after delivery, but this time she stayed, which forced me to ask her if she had anything to say. The atmosphere was noticeably tense and uncomfortable, but I could sense that something was bothering her. She expressed her desire to come in to discuss the current situation. Her request took me by surprise, but I agreed. Fortunately, our little one was already asleep, so after putting her to bed in her crib, we were able to talk. She began by apologizing for everything that had happened, revealing that her real purpose was to try to negotiate with me directly. She confessed that her feelings towards me had been fading due to our constant arguments, and that when I told her about the lottery win, her frustration increased because she had expected me to mention that now we could stop fighting, as we would have enough resources to support her parents without conflict. Not hearing these words, her anger grew throughout the night, leading her to make a drastic decision the following morning. Now she recognizes that she made a serious mistake and wanted to express to me that I did not deserve any of what happened. She admitted her selfish behavior and the cruelty with which she had handled the whole situation. She explained that she would understand if I did not show consideration for her or her parents, but she still wanted to try to persuade me to increase the child's support, arguing that it would be of great help to her and her family. She told me that she had been losing considerable sums of money on legal fees and that after the divorce she would have to live permanently with her parents and probably buy a new car. With all these financial worries in her future, she didn't want to have to deal with additional financial constraints as well. I had already prepared myself mentally for this conversation, so I immediately replied that none of this would be happening if she hadn't made the decision to leave. I explained that, unfortunately, this is how events unfolded, and that at this moment I feel no sympathy for her or her parents, reminding her how they completely blocked me before the divorce. All I could offer her was the certainty that things would improve with time, but beyond that, my position would remain unchanged. I expected her to respond angrily, but instead she began to cry, regretting how so many years together were ending in such a bitter way. I couldn't tell if her tears were genuine or manipulative, but to avoid being insensitive, I chose to remain silent. I consciously refrained from comforting her, remembering all the tears I had shed with no one but my family and friends to support me. After a few minutes of crying, she tried to appeal to my sense of responsibility towards our daughter, suggesting that I should increase the child support for her, to which I replied that I was already providing the agreed child support and did not consider it necessary to do more. When she argued that the amount was not significant, I reminded her that this was not my problem, as it was the legally established sum. Furthermore, I pointed out that given that her salary is only slightly lower than mine, it seemed unreasonable for her to expect me to cover all the expenses, especially considering that she can perfectly well maintain her standard of living with the agreed alimony. I told her directly that her real frustration lay in not having achieved 75% of my earnings as she had planned, which would prevent her from significantly raising her standard of living. I did not hold back in expressing my opinions, as her attitude was irritating me considerably. My frankness infuriated her. She accused me of being despicable and denied my claims, although the truth was evident in my words. The conversation grew increasingly heated. She repeatedly insulted me, calling me ruthless and cruel. She expressed regret for having tried to negotiate with me personally, a suggestion from her lawyer that she now regretted following. She accused me of being the same old miser and expressed her joy at being divorced. I chose not to feed the argument, and she left swearing. I felt relieved that I had stood my ground and not given in to her, as I had done so many times during our marriage. I recalled how the one time I tried to reason about reducing support to her parents, thinking of our daughter's welfare, she took it as a personal offense. This memory reinforces my conviction that I was not to blame for this situation. Although I was moved by her tears for a moment, I quickly recalled all her past actions, and any feelings of guilt vanished. I understand that her visit was an attempt to exploit any emotional weakness that might remain from our relationship, but after this encounter, I believe that those feelings have completely dissipated. Although I wish I could say that after the divorce I won't have to see her again, our daughter will keep us connected. Due to shared custody, I will have to see her every weekend during the handover periods. I know that at first it will be an uncomfortable and challenging process, but I am confident that we will adapt. Honestly, I long for the moment when our daughter is older and I can modify the custody agreement to have her with me for half of the week, not just on weekends. Although that future is still a long way off, I must accept the current reality. Having my daughter with me fills me with joy, although it saddens me that I cannot offer her the perfect family life I had imagined when she was born, a dream that vanished with the arrival of the divorce papers. However, I am determined to provide her with the best life possible and will ensure that her mother can never turn her against me or use her as a tool for manipulation. Although I recognize that this thought may seem bleak, after witnessing her attempted manipulation with tears today, I cannot help but be cautious. I feel fortunate to have maintained my resolve and not to have given in to her emotional tactics. Update 3, after a period of absence of a couple of weeks, during which I was immersed in the final phase of the divorce proceedings and catching up with accumulated work obligations, I can finally share that the divorce has been concluded on my terms. Officially, we are both free and the legal proceedings have come to an end. As expected, she is keeping her distance and her evident dissatisfaction with the outcome. In an unexpected turn of events, my in-laws contacted me via text message, expressing their desire to maintain a relationship with me despite the end of my marriage to their daughter, even extending an invitation to dinner. Recognizing this as a likely attempted manipulation, I politely declined the invitation, explaining that I preferred to keep my distance to avoid uncomfortable situations, especially considering that the divorce is recent and my ex-wife resides with them. Despite their insistence, I stood my ground, as I could not forget how they turned their back on me when I really needed their support, pretending not to be at home during my attempts at reconciliation with my wife. These actions are something I cannot forgive or forget, so I stood by my decision to decline their invitation. Since then, my interactions with my ex-wife have been strictly limited to the times she brings our daughter on weekends, meetings that she keeps short and efficient, which I sincerely appreciate, as it avoids uncomfortable situations. Emotionally, I am still in a vulnerable state, but I am striving to move forward. Although I am not considering starting new romantic relationships at the moment, I am keeping busy with other activities to distract myself and improve my well-being. The unwavering support of my friends and family has been instrumental, and my work situation has also remained positive. With lottery winnings due to be credited in a couple of weeks, I feel I can finally visualize a new beginning. Update 4, 2 years have passed since my last update, and I can say with satisfaction that my life has undergone significant positive changes. My professional career continues to thrive, and I made the decision to set aside all of my lottery winnings for my daughter's future, keeping them intact except for emergencies. As for my relationship with my daughter, I am about to implement a change in the custody agreement that will allow me to spend more time with her, a change that surprisingly has the approval of her mother. The new arrangement states that my daughter will spend half of the week with me and the other half with her mother, and because my ex-wife is about to get married again, I will no longer have to provide alimony. Indeed, I found out through mutual friends that she got engaged a few weeks ago. Although they initially kept the engagement private, they recently announced it on Instagram. I was surprised to learn that their relationship is only a few months old, which caused me some concern, mainly because this man will be part of my daughter's life. This situation prompted me to have a conversation with my ex-wife, something rare in the last 2 years. Despite the initial awkwardness, she assured me that her fiancé is a person of integrity. The fact that he is heir to a family business empire probably influenced her decision, but I refrained from commenting on it. My only request was to meet him in person, to which she agreed by organizing a dinner. After meeting him and confirming that he seems to be a sensible person, I felt more at ease. I expressed my good wishes for his future, although I made it clear that I would not participate in the wedding nor did I wish to do so. My only interest was to meet the person who would be present in my daughter's life. In all honesty, I'm happy for her. It's good that she has found someone more in line with her financial expectations. As for me, I'm also in a good place. My current life, although different from what I once imagined, gives me satisfaction and for that I feel deeply grateful.